Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Lead Skill Show. I'm your host, Oscar, and today in this episode, we have a very exciting guest. His name is David Sorblum. He is the president of DHS & Company, and I have spoken with him a couple of times. I think that his story and what they are doing in his company is very interesting. Like you guys know, the Lead Skill Show is all about sharing the entrepreneurial journey of real people and insights to help your business grow from the very first time that you decide to start your business all the way to a scalable enterprise. So without further ado, David, thank you for being here and agreeing to be a guest on my podcast.
Well, my pleasure, Oscar, and I really thank you for inviting me. And I do have a story to tell, and hopefully it'll be of interest to your listeners.
I am pretty sure that it will be. So just to start, David, I always like asking my guests to introduce themselves, their company, and what both the company does and what they do as well inside it. So can you just speak a little bit to that?
Well, my name is Dave Sorblum. I'm a CPA. I have many years of a combination of public and private accounting experience. I own and operate a company called DHS & Company. It's an accounting firm, but it also does business consulting, tax work, and financial reporting. Nowadays, our business has a concentration in real estate, but it wasn't always that way. We used to, when we started this business 26 years ago with my wife and I, my wife Susan, and she's an accountant too, but she has big corporate experience. She has no public accounting experience, but she has a lot of systems, computer, and big corporate experience working for large pharmaceutical companies and things like that. So we got together and we decided to form this company. And we actually have a slant on providing consulting services to clients. We're not the usual CPA firm when we practice accounting. We always try to look deeper into the company itself and find out how it ticks. And if we can, we like to make suggestions and recommendations. Now, it's an interesting thing because not all clients initially understand that. Some clients will say, just do my tax return. I don't need to learn anything. I don't need to talk to you about anything. And while we do the tax return or while we do the financial statement, we might uncover things that we just feel it's our responsibility to bring certain things to their attention. Now, if they don't act on those things, fine, but sometimes we'll find things that are serious, that could be improper, that they could be doing something wrong, that they could be doing something illegal, and we feel it's our responsibility to bring it to their attention and, if necessary, help them resolve it. So based on how receptive the client is, we might get hired for what now becomes a consulting project, or they might say, we hear what you're saying, we'll consider it, but we'll deal with it ourselves. We don't need you. So every situation is different and every situation evolves over time. But we started out this business trying to be consultants to the textile and apparel industries because I had in my background, in my past, worked for two apparel companies when I was in private industry. And that to me is very interesting, very exciting. But as you know, and many your listeners will probably know, is the apparel industry has changed quite a bit, not necessarily for the better. There's very little United States or domestic manufacturing. There might be some, but very little. Almost everything is imported from China or Asia, but I would say for my remaining clients in that space, 90% of what they purchase comes from China. And with all the current economic situation, the situation is very difficult right now with the tariffs. Will they be maintained? Will they be removed? Will they be expanded? Will they be postponed? So it makes it very hard to plan in this environment. And because of that, some of our clients, and not only in apparel industry, other industries, other import clients that we have, and some retail clients that we have, are experiencing very significant challenges. But as I was trying to say before, our business started to morph into real estate. So we have very little apparel left. We have some importers, but we're now very heavily into real estate. And the reason that happened is not because we necessarily like real estate. It's because our clients got out of the apparel industry and they went into real estate. So it's an interesting story because we didn't necessarily lose the clients. We just have the same clients doing real estate instead of what they used to do.
Okay.
So because of that, we became very knowledgeable in all areas of real estate. And now, I guess it's 10, 15 years later, our marketplace, the community that we are part of, starts to say, oh, yeah, these people know real estate. So that's where we're getting most of our business. Not completely, but we have a fairly strong presence in real estate.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing, how you started and where you guys are at right now. If I'm understanding correctly, and please just let me know if I don't, but just to recap, you were well, first of all, you have two companies, and so from what I'm hearing is the CPA one is the one where you guys just do the tax returns, do all the financials, etc. And if
Yes,
the clients from there want to get into consulting with you, then they go to the other company. That's a consulting company. Is that correct?
that's correct.
Okay.
But to clarify that a little is sometimes we do what I call informal consulting. So we might be hired to do a company's financial statement.
Yeah.
And we don't just mechanically do the statement. While we're doing it, we're writing footnotes, we're trying to understand if we notice problems, we informally make recommendations. We might write a management letter and say, during the course of our engagement, we noticed this. Would you like to discuss it further? And, something might come out of it, and we might be able to add value to the client. Sometimes, no, as I said before, it's just, well, just do my tax return, don't bother me. So we do what we're told and we finish the assignment. So we do a lot of that. From time to time, we'll get a call from somebody that says, we need you or your firm to put in a new computer system, or we need you to recruit a new controller for us, or we need you to find ways to cut our expenses. So they will hire us for what I call a special project. And the special project is usually a consulting project because, to do a tax return is not usually a special project. It's more like
Yeah.
a basic situation.
Okay, so you also help. So just and I was going with that, and I think you just proved the point that I was going to ask about is more than just a accounting or CPA firm and more than just a consulting firm, you guys become like real partners with your clients, right? In order to
Yes.
help them with the stuff that they need, but also with the different things that you might see that they don't know about.
Well, yeah, most of our
Okay.
client relationships are very long term. So we might learn we first meet the first generation and then we meet the second generation and in a few
That's
cases we're
awesome.
on the third generation because most of our clients, or I should say none of our clients are publicly traded companies on the stock exchange. They're all family privately owned companies, even though some of them are not that small, but they're all privately held and they're family businesses. And it's almost always the dream of every owner to say, I would love to see my children join the business.
Yeah.
But they might not be ready yet. So we actually, in some cases, mentor the children. We help design job descriptions for them or write job descriptions. We help train them in the position. We do a lot of interesting things for the entire family. And I find it's very rewarding. It's very interesting work and it's important work. It's not mechanical type of work. It's very heartening when, let's say, a 70-year-old first generation client who's been with me for 20 or 30 years says, thank you for putting my son in that position. I really didn't exactly know. I wanted him to be part of the company, but he wasn't that experienced. And you basically designed a position for him, and now you work with him to make sure that he's making the right type of progress.
Wow, that's great. Yeah, that sounds like something that would definitely be. I I believe in gratitude, so I think that's something that's great, right? When a client says, "Hey, thank you for this," right? Because it's not only that client, vendor partner relationship where, well, they're paying me to do a service and I'm doing the service, but it's actually a gratitude beyond that, right? Like you are changing the business, you are helping my kids, right, now be part of the business, and you're helping keep that dream alive.
Yeah,
Congratulations on that. I think that's
thank
great and
you.
just speaks to how well you guys do things. And so, for example, you said a client has been with you for 20, 30 years. Can you tell us and tell the audience, how did you go about getting that first or those first few clients when you first opened up your business back in the day?
Well, I always seem to have the same pattern. We get 100% of our business from referrals. We don't place an ad in the paper. We don't cold call anybody. We get 100% from clients, from existing clients. Sometimes it's just an outgrowth from an existing client where a client will say, oh, my son is opening a new business and I told him to use you. That might be an example. In other cases, oh, we're buying a new building and we need it to be financed and structured, and we need somebody to set up the opening accounting for it. So it could be something like that. But the way I got started was um, I was at a small, medium-sized CPA firm, and they sent me to one of their clients, which had been my client for a few years. And what
Okay.
happened was, had two brothers, and one of the brothers got into a fight with the controller. I mean, a fist fight. It was really crazy. So
Okay.
obviously, the controller had to leave, but they were both very emotional people. So
Okay.
the senior brother, the older brother, basically called my boss at the time, and he said, I need you to send one of your people in to run my office while I search for a new because these people were interesting people. They were wheeler dealer type of, they had a large retail company and they just like to go out into the field, opening stores and buying product and things like that. And they really didn't have an interest or even the ability to run the back office. So they said, we want you to send in one of your people to run the office in the interim. So my boss
Okay.
said, look, you're doing, and this happened right after the year-end review was starting. It was like in February, January, February of a particular year. And we were going to do the year-end review anyway, and then the tax work. So my boss said, go in there, and while you're doing the year-end review with your team, walk around the office and introduce yourself and just see that the office is running. You know, we don't want any type of, we don't want anything grinding to a halt. So to make a long story short, I just walked around the office and I got to meet the staff and I got friendly with them and they respected me and they respected my team also. Wasn't just me. And we basically kept the company running for about 2 months. And then the owner of this company, the brother said, you know, I'd love you to be my new controller.
Okay.
And I said, "Oh, thank you very much, but you know, I have a pretty good career at the other firm, and I wasn't looking for a different job." And he said, "Look, the offer stands, and when you're ready, you'll call me, and I'll hire you." So I continued to work at my CPA firm for about another 6 months, and then I said, "You know, I don't know if this is really the place where I'd like to be at." So I called this person, and he said, "You're hired," and he introduced me to his brother and his father, who I already knew, but to under the auspices of saying, well, we'd like to hire you to be our controller. And
Yeah.
I ended up staying there and doing a lot of good things with this company for 8 years.
Wow. Okay. And so,
So
but was that as the owner of your company working with them, or was that also you went and started working for them and just for them and no one else?
at that time, I became their employee. I became their controller, and they were building a pretty large retail company. So I helped them grow the company. See, it was sort of a
Okay.
pattern that the controller that they had in place was okay, but he wasn't really at the level to work with say, a company with 40 large stores. And these people were looking to grow the company and make it a lot larger and a lot more sophisticated. And, you know, they wanted somebody who was more sophisticated, let's say. So they thought that I would be the person. And I came in and over the years, we put in a very comprehensive point of sale system. And it was just a very exciting situation.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that with us. David. And just you mentioned that you've been lucky enough that all of your business have been through referrals. You haven't done any ads and marketing, anything like that. What do you think are like the most common mistakes that you might see other people, younger people in the industry making?
That's a good question. It's a long term, it's a long answer. You could, I noticed that to be a good accountant, you have to be interested in what you do. You can't do the work in a mechanical way. And even if you're extremely technical and know every possible tax and accounting regulation, it's not really the point. The point is that you have to understand the company you're dealing with, you have to understand the personalities, and you have to understand the industry. So if you go into a real estate company, you need to know enough about the marketplace and the competition and some of the challenges that they might face either in their company or just from the overall industry. And a lot of accountants, I find, they could be technical and they could even be more technical than I am, but they don't have the right viewpoint. They just say, well, I'm going to do this tax return and it's going to balance and it's going to be right.
Yeah.
Okay, that's important to a point, but that to me is not the point. The point is, you know, what's the overall situation telling me? And we try to have that vision when it comes to clients. So we have a different outlook. We're very different than the average accounting firm. We're a small firm. We only have 10 people. And what we call ourselves a boutique firm where we
Yeah.
specialize in certain things. We try to have hands-on relationships with clients. And quite honestly, we're not for everybody. If somebody says, I just need my tax return for a nominal amount, we wouldn't take them on as a client, not because we're so high and mighty, but because we appeal to certain clients. We look for clients with potential that really have a passion for their business and like to evaluate and discuss different concepts, not just say, well, we do it this way and that's it.
Okay. Okay. Appreciate that. And actually as a segue through that, the other question that I would like to know is, in your opinion, right, from everything that you've done through your years in business and all the companies that you've worked with, I mean, you're still here, right? Your company's still here, and that's just a testament to how well you guys have done things. So I would like to know, and I think, it also helped the audience to know, what do you think was the thing that differentiated you guys more than others, right? That you did, like, this is the one or two things that we did very well, right? And that's why, clients stayed with you and grew with you through the years.
Well, one of the biggest benefits we have is really our personnel. We have some very good people. We have people with unique skills or specific skills. We have a director of accounting who's also a certified fraud examiner, a forensic accountant. We have a tax
Okay.
manager who's very knowledgeable in a lot of technical tax areas. My daughter Eileen, who has joined the company and is a partner, she's not an accountant, but she's a finance person. My wife Susan is a consultant and partner in the business, and Chris is in the business and has certain technical abilities. We actually do quite a few different things for such a small company. We install QuickBooks, we install different computer systems, we hire people, we train people, but we also have industry knowledge. I have, it's not unique, but it's somewhat rare, where I have a combination of public accounting and private
Yeah.
industry. And what I did was I spent my first 10 years in public accounting, and then I went into private industry for 8 years, and then I went back to public for 5 years, and then I went to private for a couple of years. And then
Okay.
after that, my wife and I, Susan, basically decided, you know what, it's time to start our own business. We've done working for other people and doing this and punching a clock and trying to impress the boss. And we said we could do it for other people. We could do it for ourselves and just get clients. And it actually was relatively easy because at my last position, I was hired to help sell the company, his company. It was a large children's wear importer. The process, I'm sure you've been through it, you've seen it. It takes a year at least to find a suitor and to negotiate and arrange the financing and the banks and the finance people. So it took us not quite 2 years to sell the company, but I decided I didn't want to go forward with this company. I didn't care for the owner that much. I didn't like the way he treated people. And I said, I'm not going to work for somebody anymore. I've been around too long. And my wife really felt the same way. She had retired at the age of 46 from working in big corporate.
Wow.
And
Okay.
now we felt we could do something on our own. And what happened was quite a few people found out that I was part of the process to help sell this person's company because
Okay.
the apparel industry is not that big, especially in New York City. So a lot of
Yeah.
people knew this company, knew this individual, and they said, "Well, who did it for him?" And overnight, I got 5 or 6 clients.
Wow. Nice. Okay.
And since then, we've always had enough work. We're not really scratching for work. So I'm not saying we built a multinational corporation, but almost from day one, we had enough business to make a decent living. And after a year or two of dealing with these first 6 clients, we got together. We said, why don't we make this a real company? Hire people, get an office. And, 20 plus years later, now we're a real company with people and experts. So we're still small, but we have 3 CPAs, we have several MBAs, actually 3 MBAs. And
Nice.
we have the expertise and the industry knowledge to do a lot of work. So we don't like to just, like I said, do the work mechanically. Any accountant could do that, or almost any accounting firm, but we try to get deeper and deeper into the client and have a long-term relationship.
Thank you for that. It's great, how you went through that journey of just by helping that other company, get sold, and you made a name for yourself, right, within the industry. So
Yeah.
I think, that reputation is gold. It has its way in gold. Through your experience, everything you've done, I would like to ask, because part of the entrepreneurial journey is finding a challenge, right, and overcoming it, whether you find it or it finds you, right? I like to know. I'm sure you have a lot of stories, but What's, like one challenge or two that you remember that you had as you were growing your business, and how did you overcome them? I think that'll help, a lot of people just thinking about embarking on that journey.
We have a lot of stories, but as a firm, the biggest challenge is finding the right staff. Nowadays, it's hard to find good accountants. It's hard to keep good accountants. And the firm or the two firms that we established, really not everybody wants to work for us because they say, well, I need to be with Big Four. I need to be with a national
Yeah.
firm. So we're not for everybody, but that's why I say we're a boutique firm because certain people, especially before they're hired, if they get a flavor for what we are, that we have some interesting clients, we get some challenging assignments, and we actually spend the time learning the company, knowing the industry more than just we never do the work mechanically, and we don't put the pressure on staff to just finish the work and be under budget. Sometimes we spend more time and have to absorb some of that time because we feel that we needed the time to learn the client more. But I think for the last few years, we've been able to put together a very decent, a very good staff, the right people working together and really serving the clients. It's a very rewarding situation. And my son-in-law has been with us longer, but my daughter rather, just joined the business about 3 years ago. And she brings her own background and experience. It's been very rewarding for us, even for the employees.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I do believe and I agree, right? That whenever there is a challenge, having the right people is what matters the most, right? Because whether you know exactly how to go about it as it comes up, even if you don't, having the right people, they'll find a way, right, of helping you overcome whatever challenge. And yeah, I agree. That's
Yeah.
one thing that I've heard a lot. The problem with the pipeline, there's not a lot of people coming into accounting, even less so going into CPAs. And the big four are trying to grab them all, right, as they're coming along. So
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that's something that I've heard for the past year and a half, mostly more so than before, especially after COVID, and apparently a lot of people saying, "Well, I don't want to be in accounting anymore." This pandemic it made me change my mind, and they went and did something else. So that is definitely something that I've heard before.
Challenge. People want to work remotely. People don't want to be an accountant. Some people would rather do something else. But even if you don't stay as an accountant, I feel even after many years, being an accountant gives you a good foundation for business, and you could do so many other things. And having that foundation or base as an accountant, I think is very helpful.
I agree. One of my, just to a little bit of a segue here, I work with a CPA association in Texas. And one of the things that they said, right, is like the CPAs are the stars of the business, right? And I love that analogy that they make, right? Because they're the ones that can see the whole, they're the ones that can see the business as a whole, right? And know exactly what's going on, what's happening, what might need to happen, etc. And I do believe that, right? I think that accountants,
Yeah.
CPAs are like critical to an organization more so than most other positions probably. So, and especially, if someone that's an accountant or it's CPA trained, right, had a certification, whether it's current or they had it, and they go up along the ranks, they are able to see the organization in a whole different way than most other people can't, right? They're able to put the puzzle together. So I agree with that. And David, one other thing that I wanted to ask you, because of your vast experience in this industry and everything that you've seen, where do you see, like the industry, the CPA industry, the accounting industry, CPA firms going in the future? How do you think AI and everything that's happening is going to change them a lot, or do you think that it'll be business as usual? Just want to, get your opinion on that.
Well, I think AI is very, very important. It's revolutionary. I think it's important for everybody, whether an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, to understand what AI means and what it could do for you, your company, your client. You have to know enough about it and you can't shy away from it. You can't say, well, I don't understand it. I'm not going to touch it. You could, even if you start it in small bites. I mean, for
Yeah.
example, 2 years ago, I knew what it meant in words, but I didn't use it. I didn't know anything about it. And then I started to do a little research and just internally, we're using not Chat CBT, but a similar company. And it's done so many great things for us. It's given us a research tool. It's given us a writing tool. It's given us an editing tool. It's invaluable. And the more you can learn about it, it's like 40 years ago when the first PC came out.
Yeah.
I'm old enough to remember accountants, pushing a pencil and, big ledger sheets and going like this. I mean, that's ridiculous. You can't even imagine what people used to do. Even when they had computers, they didn't know computers, and you'd have to spend $1 million to buy 36 or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
Now, what you could do with PCs or network computers is it's amazing. So AI is the next step in that area. It's super important.
I love that analogy, and I couldn't agree more. I told you this last time we spoke, right? My grandfather was a CPA,
Uh,
and unfortunately, he passed away 23 years ago. But he never used a computer, even though there were already computers. And
sure.
one of my uncles, who also followed in his steps, was a CPA, and they worked together. Even though he bought computers, for the firm, my grandfather would still sit down with the ledger, just write everything down. And so,
Wait,
yeah, I mean, he refused to learn, right? So I agree with you. It's that next step. And we're getting now, to the more philosophical part of the podcast episode here. And so I would like to ask you, David, what does success, mean to you personally?
success to me, for most people, a lot of people, it's financial. Say, well, I make $1 million a year, I make 10 million. That's okay.
Yeah.
It's a good way to measure things. To me, it's success is a sense of accomplishment, a sense of fulfillment. And it's a sense when you do something for a client and the client says, I now understand and I'm going to change the way I do business. It'll make me more profitable. It'll safeguard my business so I can't, have losses or I won't waste money on expenses. So it's the sense of achievement that to me is very rewarding and very important. And I need more and more of that. I can't just do it once and say, yeah, I did it for somebody. Now I feel great. After a few days, I said, well, let's find a new challenge. And that's what sustains me.
I love that. I love it. Yeah. I mean, and that's one thing that I noticed by speaking to you, all this time is that you don't seem like you want to stop, right? And now you have your family inside the business. You guys are still working there. I can see when you speak, right, that your face lights up. So that's great.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And, what advice would you give, to someone that's either just starting, their entrepreneurial journey or are thinking about doing so?
Advice is you have to like what you do. And by the time you graduate with a degree in accounting, you should hopefully know that you like accounting. And as I said before, you don't have to stay in accounting. If you could use it as a stepping stone for something else, if you decide it's not for you. But you should by now know that you like it and it's meaningful. And the best thing I could suggest is just try to understand the company you're doing, whatever the assignment is. Don't do the work mechanically. You have to say, and it's not even hard. I find it very simple. You go into a real estate client, you say, well, what is it? Well, they own a building. It has 5 stories, and each floor has 4 apartments. So that's 5 times 4. It has 20 residents or 20 apartments in that building, and each one pays it the month. So your rent roll is, you multiply that out. It's very simple if you put it into the right perspective. Don't get
Yeah.
bogged down with nickel and dimes. Well, they did this and then they bought that and then they returned this. Go look at the big picture before you even start the assignment and say, what is this company all about? Once you do it like that, I find it's not difficult. It's
Okay.
very easy to go and do the assignment.
I think that's great advice. Starting with not doing mechanically. Sometimes it's funny that you say that because I just had a realization actually earlier this morning. Even though I work with CPA firms, accounting, bookkeepers, financial services firms to help them with marketing, business development, and sales, I keep training myself, right? So I'm also trying to learn new things and just keeping up with new technologies. And so I have a group where we have calls, weekly calls. And just today, there was something that came up. And the person, giving the presentation said, if the people that are going into any kind of sales presentation or sales call, right, where they're doing things just to close the client. So I'm thinking about it like you said, right? The analogy is mechanically. So you're just doing
Yeah.
it mechanically, right? So you're doing it to close the client, will close 10 times less than the people that go into the company or into that, that sales pitch, that sales presentation, wanting to help the client, right? And so
Yeah.
what does wanting to help the client mean? Understanding their situation, right? Looking at the big picture, seeing the details. So that was just something right now where, as you said that, I was thinking about just because it just happened a few hours ago. Like,
Mhm.
that's so true, right?
It is.
There gets a time where you're just so used to doing something that you do mechanically, but yeah, it's just wanted to add that to what you said and say that I agree 100% because again, I just had that realization earlier today as well.
Okay.
And so David, what's like one thing that you would have liked to know, just from everything that you've done, your journey and everything, what's one thing that you would have liked to know back when you were first starting that of course you didn't know then and you know now?
That's a hard question, but I think one of the things that I think I didn't know enough about then that I know a lot now, more about now, is human nature.
Okay.
And every person has a different personality. Everybody has a different set of values. Some people are looking to get away with things, illegally. Some people don't have the vision. I think it's really important to understand who you're dealing with. And when I was young, or when I was still studying accounting, and even when I was in my first or second year of working in accounting, it's hard enough just to learn the basic job. Oh, how do you do this tax return? How do you do this analysis? But I find that nowadays you have to understand people's mentality. For example, not to mention name, we have a client who's extremely difficult, and he might say, I'm doing this, but he doesn't really mean it. And you have to say, and you can't call him a liar. You have to say, well, he said he's doing it, and then you have to see if he's really doing it. So that's why I say he's difficult. Other clients, you have the relationship, you agree on something, and he just does it. And it's a pleasure. So I think understanding human nature, very, very important. And that takes a while to develop.
I love that. And I agree. I think that, just learning about human nature and knowing a little bit more about that helps you in all aspects of the business, right? From the sales part to the customer success, the customer relationship. And then later on, just when you have to tell them, hey, you know what, I'm seeing this, that you're doing this in your business. How can we, go about it if there's anything that's wrong or anything like that?
Yeah.
I agree. I appreciate that. And you know what, David, it sounds like you've had, an incredible journey so far. And I would just like to know, what's next for David? What's next for your company? Where do you see your company in a few years?
I'd like to keep doing what we're doing. I'd like to expand it a little, do a little more business development, attract some new clients, not lose any good clients, which we don't lose clients often, so that's okay. But it's really staying up with the industry, and as you mentioned, understanding the capability of AI, how to use it, what it can do for you, and then try to be a good resource for clients. That's really it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. Bear with me with the next question. It's the last question. It's a funny question
Sure.
that I like asking all of my guests. And hey, if you don't like the question, we can just not put it on the podcast. So, but hypothetically, if you had like a magic wand, right, that you could just wave, like magically fix one thing in the business right now, right? What would that one thing be?
I can't think of anything. It's not to say we're perfect and we have no issues. It's just that the biggest challenge is to maintain and grow with the world. Well, I don't mean get bigger necessarily, but stay up with all the important issues. How to use AI. What's the next tax act that's important? How to present a financial statement so the client gets the right financing from it. So I mean, it's really a question of not losing momentum. You can't be stagnant in this market and in this world. It's too complex. And the worst thing is when I first started out, I would go to a bookkeeper and try to make a suggestion, and the bookkeeper would say, this is how we've always done it. And that would really get me very frustrated because I said, but I'm trying to make a suggestion that would save you time, and I don't do that. I don't do this. It's just, anyway, it's the best thing is to just stay current and be challenged and try to have a little fun, do the best you can and do it the right way.
I love that. I think that's great advice. And thank you. Thank you for bearing with me and that question. So, David, thank you. Thanks so much. I think this has been, an incredible conversation.
Thank you.
I've enjoyed speaking with you this time and the other couple of times that we've spoken before as well. And before we wrap up, where can our listeners, learn more about you, your business, and your work?
Well, we have a website, which we're in the process of updating, but anybody could email me, david@dhsandco.com. If they have any questions about anything, I'd be happy to reply and chat with anybody. And if we could be helpful, that would be great.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. I will include that on the links and also include your website as well, down below on YouTube, up top on LinkedIn. David, thanks so much for your time and agreeing to be a guest on my podcast. I had a great time. I hope that you did as well.
Yes, thank you very much for the opportunity.
Of course, anytime. And if you want to come back again, I'll be more than glad to have you again as a guest. And to everyone listening, if you like this episode, please like, comment, and subscribe. It'll help us a lot with getting to more people that are starting or furthering their entrepreneurial journey. Once more, this has been the Lead Skill Show. I'm your host, Oscar. And with us today, we had David Sorblum. And I wish you a great rest of the week. Thanks so much. And I'll see you guys next time.